Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. We're your hosts, Kira Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental 18 podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
Two perspectives, one mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast.
Hello, Dental 18 podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Mark Costas, and of course, we also have the lovely Kira Dent. How you doing this morning, Kira?
I'm great. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing great. The reason I'm taking the lead today, guys, is because I am far, far away. I am in the land of, where am I, Kira? I'm in San Jose.
Cabo.
I'm San Jose de Cabo, which isn't actually that far, but technology-wise, it's very far. So our Skype's not working this morning. So I am calling Kira on the telephone via some strange connection. I am on the beach watching the sunrise. It's our normal early morning call. My family is still sound asleep. And I thought I'd get in a podcast with my friend Kira Dent. So, Kira, we are on the Dental 18 podcast, not the Dentalpreneur, even though I opened it up. How are you?
I'm super, super good. And I'm excited because Mark and I podcasted a ton for the Dental 18. And then we kind of went a little silent for a bit. So I'm excited to come back in, hit the tactical Dental 18 podcast style and give our listeners some solid nuggets today. How are you?
Yes, very good, very good. Just as a reminder, those of you that are listeners of the Dental 18 podcast, you know this, but there are 2 points of view. There is the dental team point of view, and that comes from Kira Dent because she's worked in just about every position that you can work in a dental practice, as well as being a multiple practice owner. And of course, the perspective that you hear more often is that of the practice owner and the CEO. And I'll be bringing that perspective and that point of view. So for you dentalpreneur listeners that are also listening to our voice right now, that is where we're coming from the Dental 18 podcast. That's what makes it different. I love your concept, Kira, where you're talking about recording some episodes that people can bring into a weekly growth meeting and use that as the talking point for the weekly growth meeting. Because when I introduced this topic to our coaching clients, they love the idea of getting together for an hour every single week, cutting time out of the schedule, talking about lag measures, where we are with certain metrics and KPIs, talking about lead measures, where we want to take the organization and how each person and each department in the organization can contribute to the overall 1, 2, or 3 big goals of the organization. They love the idea of it. And then they started holding these meetings and they're like, we just sit there and look at each other because we don't have great topics to talk about. So, it sounds like it would be easy to come up with something to talk about. Here are some of the things that we've talked about in the past in our growth meetings, Kira, and we still do these for all of my practices once a week. But we've done role-playing exercises on how to answer the telephone effectively. We've had role-playing exercises on transitions and how you go transition from the reception area to the back, from the back to introducing the doctor, from the back to the front. We've done role-playing exercises on effective case acceptance and treatment planning. A lot of what we do in the meetings is role-playing exercises, but then we'll also work on stuff like, okay, we brainstorm our lead measures. So what can the hygiene department do to contribute to the overall goal of the office, say a 20% growth? What can the front office do to contribute to the decrease of overhead for the overall office? Those sorts of things. Am I onto something here, Kira?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. I love it because it's all these different topics. And so when Mark and I talked about this, I want to call it the Monday morning mashup of this is going to be your blitz. This is where you're going to get to take these topics Monday morning with your team. We're going to release this episode every Thursday because the reality is some dentists work 6 days a week, some dentists work 4 days a week, and Thursday tends to be a popular time. So we'll have this on Thursday. That way you and your team can listen to this. So your meeting for Monday morning is already pre-prepped for you if you want to utilize it. We're going to keep them short. We're going to give you a topic that you can expand upon with your team. And there are going to be a ton of those topics, like Mark was saying, because at teams coming up with these ideas, this is one of the biggest ways I think we can reach our audience through the Dental A team and make your life even more simple. But it's going to be super fun because Mark will be the dentist perspective. I'll be the team member perspective. We're not using that word anymore. We're going to say viewpoint, vantage point. We've got to come up with something besides perspective.
Did you notice that I said point of view first and then I went back to perspective? It's like this word that just seduces me to come back and use it, overuse it. It's like, yeah, we've overused that word for sure.
So today, guys, Mark, I think the way we should kick this one off that we can then release on Thursday to get you guys in the habit of it is, first and foremost, I was in an office this last week. It was just under a week ago that I was there, and they were actually struggling to understand. We throw these words around like a wig and a lead and a lag, and I'll be 100% honest, even myself reading 4 Disciplines of Execution, where this comes from, I felt like I still did not understand lead and lag measure. And so teams, if they can't connect to this, and doctors, if you don't understand it, like this is a question I get asked a lot of, like, what is a wig and what are lead and lag measures? So Mark, I thought today, if we just break down what a wig is, what a lead and lag measure is, so we give a premise of what your meetings, like the whole reason we even do these Monday morning meetings, what the purpose of them is, this then can help set the stage for what team members need to do and what doctors need to do to make these meetings really, really successful, if you're on board to do that today, Mark.
Yeah, totally. This is a great topic. Okay, so if you guys, those of you that listen to the Dental 18 podcast may not be familiar with my Fantastic Four. My Fantastic Four are my favorite books that I recommend that actually it's mandatory reading for all of the people that work with me, all the people that work on our teams, right, Kara? We encourage all of our team members that work with us, with you and I, to read these books. And definitely, if you're going to be working with me as a client, then we also require that you read these books. And the reason is we want to have the same vantage point. We want to have the same vocabulary. We want to be talking from the same point of view. So the 4 books are, the Fantastic Four are The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. That's about marketing and building your brand. We have Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, and that is about taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life and your business. Jocko Willink was the lead SEAL in the Battle of Ramadi. He is just a scary, awesome business person and soldier. I love that book because it is all about not pointing fingers and actually taking responsibility for what happens in your life. And then last but not least is the 4 Disciplines of Execution, and that's by Sean Covey, son of the late, great Stephen Covey. And in the 4 Disciplines of Execution, this is kind of a framework of how to structure your business and how to structure the systems in your business and how to run effective meetings, which is what we are alluding to in the growth meetings. So if you're talking about the vocabulary of the 4 Disciplines of Execution and going over the framework of the 4 Disciplines of Execution, he talks about a few different types of, a few different key terms. The first one is lag measures. Lag measures are something that most of you guys are familiar with. Those are the key performance indicators. Lag measures would include things like new patients, production, collections, attrition percentage, case acceptance percentage, hygiene percentage, perio percentage, those sorts of things. Those are all lag measures. They're called lag measures because they've happened in the past at some point before the time that you're actually meeting. So you're looking back on P&Ls, you're looking back on your scorecards, you're looking back at the KPIs, things that have already happened. And then you have lead measures. Lead measures are the things that each department, if we're taking dentistry as a specific example, lead measures are what each department leans on to contribute to the overall goals of the organization. For instance, if we have a goal, or what we call a WIG, and I'll get to the WIG here in a second, if we have a WIG of 20% growth for the organization and 10% decrease in overhead, say those are 2 of our WIGs for the organization. The WIG stands for wildly important goals. And they suggest in the 4 disciplines that you have no more than 3 large goals. So your lead measure is something that each department is going to focus on for a particular amount of time to contribute to the overall goal. Because you can't go to the hygiene department and say, okay, hygiene department, we want to grow by 20% this year. Good luck, go work hard. That doesn't give them anything tangible that they can sink their teeth into. We would then say, okay, we have a 2-week or a 1-week period of time. Our lead measure for this 1-week period of time is we're going to increase the number of sealants that we present and perform on a daily basis. That's something that will directly, for that department, contribute to the WIG of the organization. Okay, so you have the lag measures. That's data that's already happened, and we're tracking that. We have lead measures, how each department is going to contribute to the overall goal of the organization. And then we have the WIG, which is the 1, 2, or 3 big goals that we're going to focus on for that particular period of time. And then we have what they call the cadence of accountability. The cadence of accountability is your weekly meeting. And what they mean by that is, how often are you going to hold the team accountable? Well, you're going to hold the team accountable every single week at these growth meetings. And what does that look like? Well, we have a set agenda. The growth meetings start with, first reading basically out loud and reviewing the lag measures from the previous week, what each department committed to as a lead measure and what were their results, and then setting the lead measures for the next week. So the agenda is set, and that's the cadence of accountability. And the last one is the scorecard. And the scorecard is basically keeping track so everybody can see. We just use a basic whiteboard in the break room, and that says, okay, Susie committed to 80% of the people in the hygiene department will get presented topical fluoride, and then we want to close 60% of those. And then there's some way that we keep track of that, and everybody can see it. So those are some of the terms for the 4 disciplines of execution. Sorry, I went long there, Kara. Go.
No, that was beautiful. And when I hear a lot of offices take this on, so from my world, I see teams, and we talk about this, and I have been indoctrinated into this jargon. When I first met Mark, and I remember sitting at my first mastermind, they said wigs. I literally went onto Amazon and ordered a wig for Justin Schmidt to send to his office because I just thought it was funny. And I was like, don't forget about your wig, because I thought it was funny. And I had no clue what wig stood for. And I was like, what are these people talking about? They're talking about all these wigs. They're so Justin actually put on this long blonde wig for his wig meeting for a while.
I remember that.
Because it was just a funny joke. But team members, I think, because sometimes even in offices when I go in there, they get so bombarded by okay, I've got to have my wig and I've got to have my lead and lag, and I don't even know how to do this. So I say, if you're brand new to having these meetings, if you're a seasoned veteran on meetings, everything that Mark just said probably makes perfect sense to you. If you're brand new to the game of having meetings, or you're an office manager and you want to get the ball rolling as that, re-listen to what Mark just talked about and write it down, because you need to have this basis. But then I want to simplify it down of where you can start, because this is where I feel a lot of offices get too overwhelmed, or they do the opposite of trying to track too many things, and you lose the momentum with the team. So WIG is a wildly important goal, and you should only have 3. And when I walk into offices, I love to say, okay, team, what are the 3 goals that you're working towards this year? And I will tell you about 90% of teams cannot tell me their 3 goals for the year. That's when you know as a leader, oh, snap, I need to work on this so my team actually can say it.
Totally.
And I can tell you even myself with my own team, if you ask them what our 3 goals are this year, they probably couldn't tell you, because I haven't done an effective job of having that on every single one of my leadership calls. These 3 things, I feel, think of it as Tony Robbins gave a really cool speech the other day that I listened to, because that's just what I do some days, is listen to Tony Robbins and get fired up. But he said, what outcome are you looking for? And I felt like if you can think of your wigs as the outcome you want for the practice, what outcome are you looking for? Do you want to grow by 20%? Do you want to make sure your team morale is really high? Do you want to have, there's so many wigs that you can do. A lot of them, they have to just be measurable as well. But the team needs to know what these 3 are. And I tell teams, just start. Just find 3 that you want to go with. They don't have to be set in stone. They don't have to be like, this isn't getting married. You're just putting 3 out there. And you can always fine tune them later. Just get a starting point and let the whole team know. And I use the example of like, I have officers make paper airplanes a lot of times. And the first time I just tell everybody to do their own paper airplane. And honestly, half the officers can't even make an airplane. I think growing up with 4 brothers, I really got the like hang of how to make an airplane because I had to beat my brothers. But a lot of people I don't think got that amazing childhood to learn paper airplanes. So it's like sheer chaos when I have them like build these paper airplanes on their own. And then I have them fly them. And if you can imagine all these random planes that are made differently, and then they're thrown into the air and it's just sheer like speckly everywhere. And then the next time I give everybody the exact directions on how to make a paper airplane. And I tell them where we're going and I give them a targeted approach. When I do that, the planes fly in much closer to the exact same area. And that's what I say is your wig. If you can get your whole team focused in on the same goals, you are going to get momentum and movement in your practice much further and much easier than you will trying to individually talk to each person and have each person work individually. Now, each person individually will work, but they're going to be working towards the set goals. So every single thing that they do, like Mark was saying with the lead and lag measures, the reason we do it, and I always use this in team meetings when I'm working with them, is, okay, so you want to set this goal for yourself. Tell me how that's going to move the WIG, our 3 goals of the office, forward. So if I say, I'm going to work on case acceptance. Okay, Kira, how are you going to track your case acceptance? I'm going to make sure I close 90% of my cases this week. Okay, great goal. How are you going to track that? I'm going to use my treatment tracker so that way I can give you tangible results. Okay, fantastic. How by you tracking your treatment at case acceptance every single day to try to get 90% by next week, how is that going to impact the 3 goals of the office? Well, let's say our 3 goals are growth by 20%. I would then say, by tracking my case acceptance, if I can close 90% of my cases and get more high production cases scheduled, I'm going to be able to help grow our practice by 20% because I'll be able to increase our production per month by X amount. Do you see how like everything, instead of it just being a random goal or a random thing that the team wants to do, they have to explain how it's going to tie back to those 3 objectives of the office. So that way everyone's really focused in on that. Mark, I feel like I've just gone on my own tangent as well. What are your thoughts on that, tying it into teams?
Yeah, I love that. You didn't go on a tangent. I was actually, I wish I had my pad in front of me while I'm sitting on the beach here, but I don't have it, so I wasn't taking notes. I'll just listen back to it. But yeah, really, really great points. I mean, it comes down to this example that I once heard. I forget who it was. It might have been Mark Sanborn, but I don't want to take credit for this, but it was a really cool analogy. And they said, take the best archer in the world, the person that just won, whatever. They just won the Archer World Championships, and put them 20 yards from a target and, give them their bow and arrow and tell them that you will pay them $1 million if you hit it right in the middle of the bullseye. And they'll be like, yeah, no problem. I do this every single day. That's why I won the World Championships. But then put a blindfold on them, spin them around 3 times and tell them to do the same thing. It's like, no matter how much you pay them, there's no chance that they'll be able to hit a bullseye. And that goes the same for our teams, right? If we don't spend time to clearly articulate exactly what our expectations are, exactly what looks like success for the office, they're never going to be able to hit the bullseye. It's a very, very simple thing. It's that everybody in your organization knows what the top 3 priorities are for the year, and then you give them the tools and the support in order to go out and get them. And that's exactly what these growth meetings are. You have to be very crystal clear about what your expectations are. You have to tell them exactly what success looks like, and you have to give them the resources. So those resources, just like Kara was talking about, treatment tracker, that's how we're going to track case acceptance. In our case, we have divergence. So we know exactly what our case acceptance looks like. We know exactly what our attrition rate looks like. So if one of our WIGs or one of our lead measures for the week is to decrease the attrition rate, the number of people that are walking out the door and not coming back, then we're going to have, a few resources at their disposal in order to accomplish their goal for the week. But it really is. I love the fact that you said a lot of times you walk into an office and people don't know what their 3 WIGs are, even if they are using the 4 disciplines of execution as their framework. And I've been guilty of that as well in some of my offices. It's really important that everybody knows exactly what the target is for the year and what we're striving for. And that was what my attempt was with leading with, first announcing the WIGs in the agenda. Okay, guys, just as a reminder, we're starting off our weekly growth meeting. Just as a reminder, our goal is to grow by 20%, and that is $1.9 million this calendar year. If you divide that by 12, then it's going to be this much per month. If you divide that by the number of days in the month, it's going to be this much per day. If you divide that by the number of hours per day, it's going to be this much per hour. Okay, so we're all on the same page. This is the goal. This is what we're going for in order to accomplish one of our WIGs. Everybody should know that.
Exactly. And I really recommend that you have these 3 goals, but make it so simple. Like, I think sometimes doctors and teams think a little bit differently. Like, I went into an office and they were tracking, like, I'm not kidding when I say 50 items, and it was so much that they were working on that we just needed to make sure that it's simple. It should be so simple that your team, without having to go back to the whiteboard, can tell me what the 3 goals are for the year. They should be able to know exactly what that is. That's how you know you've won as a leader. If I were to walk into your office, ask them, but have these goals set up on the whiteboard. Have these goals publicly visible for your team so they know exactly what they're working for. That's that target. That's the target with the planes. That's the target with the archery arrows. Because what that will subconsciously do as well is when they visually are seeing this, their subconscious starts working of ways that they can hit these goals, ways that they can actually make this achievable. It's just like Mark and I had a Dentalpreneur podcast, I think, where I talked about I write my goals on my mirror with a dry erase, because then every morning when I live at home, when I'm on the road, it doesn't work super great. But every morning when I'm getting ready,
the maids are all motivated every morning.
Right, guys, here you go. Here's got her list up. But every morning I see that, and that sets the filter and the precedent for my day of what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve. So now, since I'm not at home all the time, I have my goals written on a sheet of paper that I read every single morning. That way I'm focused on what I'm going to, and it's the same thing for your team. So I want to get real tactical and let you guys know, like, okay, let's do a jump start meeting in a box so you guys can actually get started on your meeting. And I'd say, first step, break down your three office WIGs. So wildly important goals. What's going to propel your office, your life, your team forward? And have your team contribute. Like, you can say, hey guys, as the dentist, hey, these are the 3 things that I want to work on, but I want your input so you are also committed to these goals and you can feel that they're achievable. Get the team to talk about it. Have them commit to these 3 goals. Or as dentists, set the goal because you are the leader and you can see the 50-foot vision as opposed to the here and now. Once those 3 goals are set, then I say, from here, each person takes an accountability piece. And I kind of say the accountability piece, do the lead and lag. You can read about these, but if that gets too confusing or you don't want to start there, that feels a little too cumbersome, because I'll be honest, when I first read that, I was like, I can't even figure out what lead or lag is. This is real hard for my brain. I just say, okay, have each person choose something that's measurable. It has to be measurable that they will personally do that's going to help propel the 3 goals forward, and explain how it will propel the 3 goals forward. That's super simple. Like, just keep it that simple at the very beginning. And then as you progress every single week with that weekly agenda, like Mark said, so then the third piece of this would be to have an agenda that you have with the 3 goals, what each person's accountability is and how they're going to measure it. So at your next weekly growth meeting, you can review all those and ask people how they did. So 3 checkpoints. Mark, do you feel that encompasses how to start your weekly meetings and your monthly and your yearly goals in a quick 3-step process?
I totally love that. Yeah, that's a great jump start. I would suggest, as with any meeting you ever have, including the morning huddles, so we have the morning huddles, we have the weekly growth meeting, we have maybe we have a weekly meeting with the office manager and the CEO. The office manager should have a weekly meeting, even if it's 10, 15 minutes with each of the each of the lead assistants in in each of the departments. So whatever meeting you happen to be having, you should have a set agenda that you print out. It's blank and you fill it out every single time so that you know that you're staying on the agenda of the meeting and you don't go down a rabbit hole, because in the beginning, especially, meetings will have the tendency to degrade into a bitch session. And that's just because most people don't have a really nice platform to air their frustrations. So when everybody gets together, a lot of times things degrade into a bitch session. If people are going to bitch, you put that off until the end of the meeting and make sure you get through your agenda first. And I would suggest that the more you can meet with set agendas, the less people are going to be unhappy, the less drama you will have, and the more opportunity you will have to offset large problems, especially with communication, if you meet often with set agendas. So yes, I like exactly the way that you laid that out, Kira, but I would suggest that there is a written agenda and you follow it to the T per minute for every single meeting that you have.
I totally agree. And to tie into what Mark just said about the complaints that the team will bring up, I read in another one of mine of Mark's favorite books called Traction. So you can throw that onto your Fantastic Five now.
Yep.
Traction is a great book, and they have an issue list. So what you can do is if people have complaints that will come up, just put them on the issue list. You can literally just have on the whiteboard says issues, just write them all down so people feel like they were heard and that we can just ignore them. But we're not going to delve into that. So any concern, we just say issue, and it goes onto the issue list, and you can come back to those later, because a lot of those issues will actually be solved during your meeting and you don't need to dive into them. But that makes teams feel like they're heard and they're not being ignored and that their issues aren't a priority in the meeting. But that's a simple way to get it to where it's very organized, it's very clean, and we don't lose them down that rabbit hole. Lastly, I wanted to put into effect that keeping these meetings at a set time that's always predictable. A lot of offices make the mistake of having their team meetings over lunch. And if that works for your office, beautiful, if you can always be done on time. But I will tell you, in my 15 plus years of dentistry, lunches tend not to be sacred time, and they tend to always have something that comes up. A patient runs late, a patient goes over, the hygienists don't get done on time, an emergency patient calls. I say that the best thing you can do is you can make it to where your team meeting is set at the only predictable time. The only predictable time in a dental office is very first thing in the morning, because nothing else is going on. That's the only time that you can ever count on 100% of the time. So Mark and I recommend heavily that you do it on Mondays. We like to kick off the week with these meetings. That way people are focused. You can do it whenever you want. But I personally recommend the 8 a.m. You don't do it before patients. So you do the 8 to 9 o'clock hour on Mondays. You have your agenda set, ready to go. Every team member is present and every team member is participating, and you go it out. So there's our quick little way to run meetings, and we can't wait to hear how you guys do it and share with us. But every single Monday morning, we'll have a topic for you that you can add into it. We recommend, I usually choose about 15 minutes to review the growth goals, and then go into like 30 minutes of teaching time that you really enjoy teaching with each other. And a lot of our topics will be those teaching topics. You can role play, you can experiment, you can talk about, you can brainstorm after you've gone over the numbers of the practice for the first 15 minutes. And Mark, if you've got nothing else, I think we did a wrap today.
Oh, really good job, Kira. Thank you for joining me while I gaze out on the Pacific Ocean here. Thank you, Dentalpreneur listeners and Dental A Team listeners, for joining us today. Hopefully, you guys take the time to re-listen to this with a pen and pad of paper in hand and write down, create your own agenda, create your own WIGs, your own lead measures, your own lag measures, and we'll talk to you next time. Thank you, Kira.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Office managers, I really want you to do this. So please, office managers, do this heavily and let me know. You can always reach out and ask me for help. This has been my world. This is what we coach on. So start it. Start implementing it. Office managers, this is a great way you can just launch your team into a really beautiful forward motion. And we're here to help you all along the way. Thanks, Mark.
Take care. Have a great day now.
And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.